Hello, and thank you for coming to our presentation. We appreciate you for being here this morning. By the end of the session, we hope that you will know more about the alignment of programs and reporting used in the dropout prevention reporting format. My name is Natasha Loon, and I am the Director of the Office of Dropout Prevention. And with me this morning, I have
Good morning. We have an entourage. So I'm Carla Green. I'm the Director of Ungraded Schools for Comprehensive Support and Improvement. So I support juvenile justice programs, alternative schools, and our Title I Part D.
Good morning. I am Joey Nice, Director of Alternative Schools, and I support Carla and the work that she does in the Bureau of School Improvement as well.
In today's presentation, we're going to provide a brief overview of the dropout prevention programs, alternative schools, and Title I Part D, as well as how the programs align. We'll provide details and changes in the elements in the dropout prevention data reporting format and discuss the use of student demographic reporting format to report students for Title I allocation. In this presentation, if there's anything that is not clear, please raise your hand and we will do our best to address your question. And we would appreciate if during the talk you would silence your phones.
We are so excited. This is our first time doing a face-to-face since everything seems to be kind of rolling back into the normal that we all wanted so badly. So we are excited to be here. And as Natasha said, we want some interaction. We want to make sure we answer your questions. And so if we can, everyone put their name in the chat box and what the weather's like. Sorry. Let me start that over again. If everyone can just practice raising your real hand instead of your virtual hand. So put a hand up. Oh, isn't that pretty? Now, if you'll take your other hand and just put it over there. That's how we prefer you to applaud right now, because too much applause at the end will scare us. This is first time in front of people. So if you can just do the Zoom applause for right now, kind of ease us back into this. And we do want to thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. And we're excited to be traveling. So we did want to ask this morning, who traveled the furthest, and this is for a prize, not just asking, who traveled the furthest to be with us at this conference? If you think you did, go ahead and say it. Traveled the furthest to get to Orlando to learn all about this. Hey, if you answer and no one else does, you get the free candy. What you got? Is that in?
Congratulations. As you know, dropout prevention and academic intervention programs differ from traditional education programs in schools in various ways and employ alternative teaching methods, curricula, learning activities, and diagnostic, as well as assessment procedures in order to meet the needs of students, interests, abilities, and talents. Student eligibility requirements are students in grades 1st through 12th grade defined as academically unsuccessful, students with a pattern of excessive absenteeism or habitual truancy, students with a history of disruptive behavior, or students identified by a school's early warning system pursuant to the Florida statute. The Office of Dropout Prevention drafts an annual report which provides demographic data for all students served in disciplinary, educational alternative, and teenage parent dropout prevention programs. This report describes the types of data used to measure student outcomes, in the specific programs. Pursuant to section 100353 of the Florida statute, the Office of Dropout Prevention is required to provide this report to legislature February 15th annually. Current and past reports can be found on the Dropout Prevention Office webpage on DOE's website.
So an alternative school defined in statute 1008.341, and that's that school improvement statute, defined is a school that provides dropout prevention and academic services under the statute that Natasha referenced. Each student served in an alternative school should be reported in the dropout prevention program data, the data element 115608.
In our Title I Part D programs, this is our federal programs that serve our students that are classified as neglected or delinquent or at risk of dropping out of school. So we'll get into the elements and really talk about them, but what you're going to need to know for your Part D programs, there are two key elements that really trigger our reporting, and that is Fund Source D, as well as the Dropout Prevention or Juvenile Justice Program Code. So we'll get into the details of those data elements. But it's important to know that these student outcomes, that they're reported through that consolidated state performance report collection that we had, that we provide to the U.S. Department of Education. So those particular elements are important for that reporting format.
So we talked a little bit about travel. We are all excited about that. Who has booked the most recent trip? Not to Orlando for this conference, although that's exciting. Who got up this morning and booked a trip to an island somewhere? Plans far, far away. Who has booked a trip at all? Western Caribbean and West Virginia is exciting. Got two more here.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah, thanks, Joey. So really, the reason all three of us are here today is because we're really having a focus of aligning our programs. And we want to provide that program alignment overview to you, so you can see the different programs and what really, as we have been looking at the data, analyzing the data, what we're seeing is we're finding a lot of inaccuracies in the data reporting using the dropout prevention data reporting format in Survey 5. So what we want to do is make sure that you see the crosswalk, that we're aligning all of our key elements for this accurate reporting, because it helps us to evaluate our programs. It helps us to know how to provide the technical assistance for programming. So as you can see here with dropout prevention programs in alternative schools, this helps us with state reporting, again, with program evaluation, and really with your local accountability. But if you look to the Title I Part D programs, we have a federal report. And again, you can still use it for local accountability, but for us, our key is program evaluation. On the screen here, you see a crosswalk of the program elements. And we put an X, so you can see in each of the item numbers in those field descriptions, how they align with all of the program areas. And you can see that all of these elements, we use them in all three program areas. The only two that I already mentioned, one, the fund source, that's specific to Title I Part D. And then we'll get into the math and reading pretest outcomes and progress levels, which is with Title I Part D reporting.
That's me then. So this is one you're going to have to yell out and help us with. Who has been working in MIS the longest? We got, give us some numbers. Over 35? What's the best part? The best part. Solving problems.
The dropout prevention and juvenile justice program primary data element is 115680. This data element is used for all program areas in reporting students in dropout prevention or DJJ programs. Students served at any time during the school year must be reported, all students served. For students participating in one or more program, school, and term, record the code for each dropout prevention juvenile justice program at each school for each term in which the student participated. The codes on the slide are from the various dropout prevention or juvenile justice program areas. Each student enrolled in an alternative school should be reported in dropout prevention programs. Students in comprehensive schools may have a dropout prevention program, and those students should be coded accordingly. The codes with asterisk are disciplinary programs, teen parent programs, and educational alternatives, whether located in a comprehensive school or an alternative school, are reported to the state legislature in the annual report. The program codes are also classified as Title I-D, Part D programs serving delinquent or neglected students at risk of dropping out of school. Priority of Part D is delinquent students. The majority of students reported will be reported in codes D, J, or T. The students at risk of dropping out can be served in alternative schools or in comprehensive schools that may have dropout prevention programs, such as W, supplemental support program, or after-school tutoring. Code Z is non-applicable, and the following slides will highlight changes to codes N and Z. You'll also notice that the presentation slides contain old language for familiarity, but they've been striked out, and the new language will be shown in orange text.
I'm so sorry. I wanted to point out this particular element. So we really revised it to simplify this definition. And it is, when we're talking about our neglected programs, it's our non-school institution for our neglected students. So these are where the students are residing in a facility, and they're attending school at a traditional school within the district. So we want to make sure that we are identifying those students as such if Title I funds are being used for them to provide their services. So that's the non-school institution for neglected students.
We want to go back and draw attention to that data element, the 115680. That's the dropout prevention and juvenile justice programs. And the change to the language in that is that code Z. And use this code only on that federal state indicator. So for the code is not applicable during the dropout prevention data format and cannot be reported. So putting that in the terms of where we're seeing that is that I don't know that it's being used incorrectly as much as it's not being reported. And when it's not reported, it defaults to that Z code. And so we're seeing large pockets where students in alternative schools are not getting recorded there. And so we want to make sure the data that's coming is as accurate as it can be for your district use, and then for collaboration with DOE when we're seeing that. So make sure that that code Z is not showing up by default, and that we're coding the student to the correct dropout prevention data element. So on that same data element, this is also reported in surveys 2 and 3. Only one code is reported. R and E, the dropout retrieval and alternative to expulsion, take priority because they are used in the accountability system. So we need to know how to sort and filter those students. And then again, that code Z is going to be the default if they're not reported. So we want to make sure that we're choosing the most appropriate supports that student is receiving and report them in that code. One change to a data element, and this is an optional data element that districts use. This is not required reporting for the state, 115666. And this is that reason for placement in a dropout prevention and academic intervention program. So the changes to that is the I code, that alternative placement has been changed, the wording to match what it was reporting, which is the alternative to expulsion. We've added a couple with conversations with districts of reasons why students are getting that academic intervention. So one of those is the substance abuse. If you've got programs that are meeting that need for a student, you can code that with the M. And then the other, we're seeing some pockets where districts have other reasons for that academic intervention. An example of this that came up recently is student caregivers. If they're a caregiver in their home, a primary caregiver, and we've seen an increase in reporting of that, those students might need that academic intervention where they can get that modified schedule or the supports that they need so that they have an equal path to graduation and post-secondary success. Again, when we're talking about these codes, these are optional and it is up to the district if they're using them. I believe this is you.
Okay, for this one, data element 115660, this is for the dropout prevention length of prescribed program. And with the revised definition, it's really just showing us that, maybe I should back up. I want to explain what adjudication means, because I know if you're not in the world of juvenile justice, when you hear adjudication, it's like, I'm not sure what to report. So really adjudication means that the court finds that the student is guilty of really committing that delinquent act. So and that's at that point, they're committed to a program. So many of our students that go to a DJJ detention center, that's a short-term facility, and they're not necessarily adjudicated at that point. So when they become adjudicated, that's typically when they're sent to a residential program or a commitment program. And so this is just really helping us to understand that definition of non-adjudicated students. You would, many of in our county jails and the city jail programs, they're also not adjudicated. So that's really communication that has to occur between the program staff to find out which of those students, especially in the county jails, because some of them there could be adjudicated, some could not.
Data element 115662, dropout prevention, length of program participation. The length of program participation in the student's actual participation or attendance in each dropout prevention program at each school. The biggest change is that the length must be less than 181 days because you submit separate records by term. And the dropout prevention and academic intervention report provides data on students that show 50% or more participation in dropout prevention programs. So this data element is essential in that state reporting information as well. The dropout prevention program enrollment date and withdrawal date establishes the length of enrollment, which is also critical information to track and collect program participation. And shown are the formats for the enrollment date and withdrawal date.
Okay, I think you're stuck with me the rest of the presentation, so we're not going to keep popping up. I really want to point out this slide, and I wish I had a pointer to show you. What I want to highlight is that fourth bullet: pretest outcomes are underreported. We have pretest outcomes for reading and math, and these reporting elements are to be reported for Title I Part D programs. And we needed to clarify, it's not just the at-risk programs. These are for our DJJ and county jail programs as well. If they have a program, if they've been in the program at least 90 days, then they should be reported with a reading and a math pretest outcome. When you see it's called the Worldwide Interactive Network. Our DJJ programs are familiar with it. We call it the WIN Common Assessment. That WIN Common Assessment doesn't give a grade level equivalency. So we really want our programs to be using a different type of assessment. A lot of districts are using STAR assessment, iReady, but our DJJ programs are to be progress monitoring their students, and that's where we can get the pretest outcomes. So if there's confusion with the WIN Common Assessment versus a different assessment to determine the pretest outcomes, then those are conversations that please reach out to me, and I can have those conversations with our programs if there's any question about what tests should be used for these outcomes. The next thing I really want to point out is Code Z. This has been confusing to a lot of districts, so I want to make sure that we're really clear on the guidance. This is not saying that we use Code Z with our DJJ schools. You really need to interpret this as this is applicable for students in DJJ schools that are there less than 90 days. We've had, and I'll be honest, our federal reporting, we only have 5 districts that are reporting the pretest outcomes and the progress levels. So we're missing the mark on reporting this particular element, and I don't want it to be because of Code Z that we're misinterpreting Z as we don't have to report this for DJJ schools. We're only in that particular one. Again, we're just looking if they're there fewer than 90 days, then you don't have to report it. So the next element is the progress level. So you have the pretest report, and then you'll have the progress level. And I won't read all of the progress levels to you, but again, the progress levels are underreported, and it's for all of our programs that are supported with Part D funds. And the same applies with that Code Z. The same guidance for all program types, including DJJ, as long as they're there more than 90 days. Fund source, I mentioned that this is the first thing when the gentleman that does our reporting, that's the first thing that he filters by is fund source D. So with this data element, there's really 2 options for you. It's either they're supported by Part D funds or they're not. Why this is important? So if fund source D is not coded, then the student will not be counted as participating in the program, and we don't have those outcomes to be able to send to the federal, the U.S. Department of Education. The flip side of it is if you do have that put the fund source code to the student, and they're not being served with Part D funds, then the district is responsible for those outcomes, even if the student was not supported through those funds. So this is a very important key element for Title I Part D funding. Talk a little bit more about the funding and how it's generated. So I want to shift from the dropout prevention reporting format to the student demographic reporting format. This is reported in surveys 5 and 9. For surveys 5 and 9, you're going to submit this record for each student that was in one of our institutions. So that's 5 and 9. But then in surveys 9, we're reporting those students for that enrollment. And so in survey 9, and I think I have it on the next screen, I'll get to it. But in survey 5, this is where we are looking at all of our students that were in a program during that year. This is where we've talked about the non-school institution. So we have our students in a school institution. They'll have the MSID number, or they're in a non-school institution. You'll have those three, you'll see the three numbers with the A in front of those three numbers. That's your non-school institution. So our students have to be reported in either of those institutions. The biggest difference for this next year that we really needed to clarify, for survey 5, this is where we're reporting that our students are being served. So it's not inclusive of the ages 5 through 17. It's all students, because we can serve them up to age 22. So it's really under the age of 22, serving them with Part D funds. So then in survey 9, really this is the survey that generates our Title I Part D allocation. So survey 9 is really important to your districts for funding for Part D. This is inclusive of ages 5 through 17. So that's the age group that we can report. And this is a 30-day count window. What I really want to emphasize in this 30-day count window, it's 30 days, and only one day has to be in the month of October, but it just has to be a 30-day consecutive window. You can look, I'll just use Hillsborough as an example. They have several DJJ programs. They can report survey 9 for each program. If you have to look at the highest number. We want the highest number within a 30-day period. So that reporting, that 30-day window can change. We do have, because the students reside there, we do have weekend and holiday reporting, but this is manual reporting. So if you don't have a mechanism to report that, we can capture it through a manual survey. And our program office will give more information when it comes time for survey 9 reporting, specifically with the manual reporting. And as districts, you can request this information through the Northwest Region Data Center. So you'll have that in the PowerPoint, so you know which files that you can request, so you know those students reported with the dropout prevention. And then as far as our Title I Part D office, we have our survey 9. That's our annual count, and we verify that in January. And then we really analyze survey 5, and we have that program for our program evaluation, and that occurs in December. And then our submission for the CSPR data, the submission to the U.S. Department of Education, that occurs in May. And of course, we do the data quality checks throughout the year to really support your programs. So that's our information, and you have our contacts, our contact information. So we wanted to come as a team because we wanted you to know that we're working diligently to align our programs, and really we're finding a lot of data inaccuracies. So we want the data to be as accurate as possible, because we want to provide that technical assistance when it comes to programming for our students, so we can see the best outcomes for them. So I think we have plenty of time that we can have question and answers. We would be happy to, please ask away. Yes, ma'am. When do we pull the data to send to the feds? I know that Andrew does the reporting in February. But I think they pull it. They do.
Yeah. If you remember,
we have a preliminary we send out to everybody. It's like about that's for all for this next month goes to the so it's usually the first week of the month that's going to close survey 5. That's why we generally send out information to the program people. I try to shoot you guys and stuff to let you know all of this stuff cleaned up by then, because there's no second pull to that.
Exactly. Last year I didn't get a copy of this when it's,
Yeah.
and so it was like a bad crazy thing. So if I knew ahead of time, that was always.
Yeah, but it's usually what I think we shoot for is the around the first Friday of that month that's going to close. But what I'll do is I'll keep an eye, I'll talk to Anna, and I'll try and make sure whatever they send out to the program people, because sometimes the chancellor sends it out and you don't get the chance to email. I'll see if they'll always copy me on it so that I can then send you guys.
Okay. We need that before the deadline so that we can coordinate and try to get everything, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you for that. And then we can coordinate as well, and we'll try to get more information out throughout the year when those times are due as well. Yes, ma'am. Yes, so this is where it gets really complicated. The question was regarding lunch status, which I'm definitely not the lunch status guru. But so in our DJJ programs, a lot of these programs, and I should say residential programs, they have a provider, and they are the ones that are providing the lunches and not the school district. But many of them are submitting applications to the Department of Agriculture, and they are getting they're responsible for the National Lunch Program application. But that has to be communicated to the district because they need to be reported with lunch status if they in fact are on a national lunch program. So I don't feel comfortable answering that question. And you need to reach out to Valerie Henry. Which lunch status code would need to be reported.
So if you look at your lunch status code, you only get received codes, which they wouldn't be any of the CP codes, C, R, and I think. You got your provision too, but there's only 2 of those schools in all the state. Which is interesting to me, because with the CP if you want. But the rest of our application codes, so it'll be the same application code, whether they got free reduced lunch, 3, F, whatever the things are. So because you can only stay within those data elements, and there are no data elements that designate whether you came to a facility or whatever. If it's an application, if they have lunch and they go on their own application process because they're provided with that, then they just need to tell you whether they're free or reduced. I'm not sure of is if when you get your direct cert file, if those kids are in there. So if they're in there, then they get direct cert to them. But if they just have, you have to go what they tell them.
So we've been told about the speak, but they're not.
Well, they're probably doing application. And so you know, we have to get an application that is research. So that's family qualification.
Thank you for that question. Any others? Yes, ma'am.
More information about the neglected side, the non-school side. What qualifies that, what does not.
Sure. So our office in the last couple of weeks have been reaching out to the districts. We are cleaning up the non-school institution list. We work with DCF. They have a licensed group home list that helps to determine, and I'll say it this way, DCF also has sends a report to the Fed. So we want to make sure that we're not reporting the same students. So we're really looking through each of what is being reported currently as non-school institutions and asking the districts if they're not on DCF's licensed group home list, how did the district determine them as neglected? And it's really having conversations to make sure that if the district has reported them as non-school institution, that they do meet each criteria. And I'll be honest, the definition is very vague, and a lot of it is for the federal language is vague because a lot of it is determined through our state. So it's really I can't give you one exact answer because every facility or every group home or provider are serving a different set of students. So if there's a particular institution that you're not sure about, please reach out to us and we can talk that through to make sure that those are students that should be reported.
Okay, and I have heard that students that get reported in that area, the non-school institution, that sometimes those numbers can play into the Title I.
Yes, so there's this, so there's a set aside for Title I Part A, and those neglected students, they're reported at the same time. So in survey 9, we're going to determine if they're neglected or delinquent, and the neglected, it's really for Title I Part A set aside. We're pulling from that neglected number. And that's where the allocation for Title I Part A set aside comes from, it's the neglected students.
And then there was a slide, I think it was like 5 or something, where you had changed it, and I don't remember the number exactly. But with the survey 5 data, and I think it was flying through where we reported students that were served with Title I-A fund, Part A and Part D, and then the orange down below said just the Part B. I can't remember what's right there. So for this code in, that's only going to be for students that are served with Title I Part D funds.
Right, with title, exactly, with title.
So it did say Title I Part A, but that's removed. Okay.
If they're in a non-school institution and we're serving them through Title I Part D funds, that's what's reported there. Yes, ma'am. Mhm.
Can you go back to the slide that had,
What, do you know what number that was?
Right there.
This one?
Yeah.
So this is the school year versus the summer term. And so you would have to report, it'd be reporting the 180 days, and then typically it's the 60 days in the summer. So you're reporting them as two separate terms. So I know that a lot of our school year does go past the July 1st. So we still have to be able to report if they're still working on a credit. And especially for graduation, we still need to be able to report them as a school year, even after that July 1. Are you saying for reporting or for statutory? So for statutory, DJJ programs, they have a 250 instructional day calendar. And you're right, it does. The day that they end in their summer, they start their fall schedule. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, so Natasha said Beverly Wilkes is who you should reach out to. K-E-S.
Just W-I-L-K-E-S.
So Wilkes has an E, W-I-L-K-E-S. For those of you who knew Iris, she's the new Iris. Any other questions? Good questions. I would just say with our DJJ programs, there tends to be a lot, I don't want to say a lot, there tends to be a disconnect sometimes with making sure that the information is from the DJJ programs to the school district. We are working on whether it's through Title I Part D or for our DJJ programs that are unsatisfactory. We're really working on systems change this year, and a lot of our monitoring will be to include policies and procedures. So how are the DJJ programs provide? What are their procedures to provide the information to the district? And then, of course, what is the district doing with that information for reporting? So we are working on some systems change when it comes to policies and procedures, specifically for the Title I Part D programs in our DJJ schools. So we're making strides. Yes, sir.
And, I don't know if you noticed in the last couple of years, Melissa ran vice chancellor over all of these groups. She and I have been working hard to try to build more collaboration between her program and us as MIS. And so what we're trying, and I'm trying to make sure that there's a lot of this kind of technical assistance that goes out to the program that I feel like would be nice for us to have. Because we're kind of the state reporting agency. And so what I'm working on is finally, we're trying to put in place a way that as they disseminate information, I acknowledge the value so I can then send it out to my MIS contact and my director. So we can build better collaboration with the program and reporting.
Thank you for that. I do want to go back to, I'm just curious if anybody wants to admit to it. I don't know, has your district been confused by Z that you haven't been reporting DJJ schools because of Z? Yes, ma'am. Yes, Miss Seiko, yes.
Okay, I just want to just make it the Z code cannot be reported on some applications, so that's not an issue. It's not even allowed. You gotta reach it, so you can't even see it.
Thank you. Is that it? Any other questions?
Okay, so this chocolate cannot be in the car ride home.
It's not an option. They have to go over to this side of the room. So who wants to eat questions?
Stop it. Someone's gonna stop the recording.